humanitarian efforts, please welcome to the stage our Be Great Icon Humanitarian Award recipient, Larry Namer.
Leave this place better than we found it, whether it's be to help the people that we know, animals, the planet, the environment and stuff. I mean, that's our purpose for being here.
Thank you so much for joining me today. You've got such an interesting background, and I'm just going to jump right in, even though I know you've mentioned this before about your beginnings, but I would love to hear just a little bit of it. You don't have to go through everything, but let's just, so people can follow this, your journey a little bit in this conversation.
Yeah, we got born and raised in Brooklyn before it was trendy Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the area I come from is still the hood, but it's pretty good. It's about a family. Father drove a Pepsi Cola truck. My mother worked for New York City Department of Social Services.
Mm-hmm.
So, their aspirations for me were, get a civil service job and get a pension and, be secure and all that. But for whatever reason, I didn't kind of follow that that path, and ended up, I was the first person in the family ever to go to college, graduate college, and I was thinking of being a teacher in New York, and New York City cut the budget, so I couldn't get a job. So I had somebody I knew that was in the electricians union. They said, "Oh, we just organized this thing. It's called cable TV, and if you want a summer job, here, go see this guy." And so I did that, and they gave me a job. I actually had to lie that I had a college degree, because otherwise they probably wouldn't have hired me, because everybody there was like barely high school. And they gave me a job as an assistant underground splicer.
Going down that far with the cockroaches and the rats, hopefully they didn't talk back to you.
But I did get to know most of them by their first names. But so I did that, and it was an interesting time, because people were still going, "Oh, cable TV, who will ever pay for TV?" And obviously they were not, didn't have the foresight to see where the world was going. But so I was great, and I kind of learned the technical side first, and kind of rose, kind of up the ranks. I went from an assistant splicer to a splicer, to a construction guy, to a installer, to a service person, and then eventually Time Incorporated bought the company, and Time was a magazine company then, and they had made this decision that over a 10-year period they were going to kind of migrate from being a publishing company to becoming a media company.
Okay.
So it was a great place to be then, because they started to invest a lot of money in building cable systems around the country. I was part of the group that started HBO and Cinemax, and we were really the pioneers in the urban cable or modern cable.
Right.
And so it was a great place to grow up, and I eventually became the director of operations at I think I was 25 or something, and I had like 300 and some odd people reporting to me, and all older, so that was quite an interesting challenge.
So that's really interesting, just hearing that. I'm glad we did start there, because I always find it interesting how people's journey in life, there's this tie-in. So that was like, it felt you couldn't get a job doing something else, and you fell into this, and then it just ties into where you ended up going. So after you left there, how did you get from New York to Los Angeles?
It was just about at the time big cities began to realize that cable was more than just providing good reception.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden cities wanted to issue franchises for cable companies. But a lot of the big cities, like Los Angeles in particular, didn't want to see cables going up on telephone poles because they're unsightly. So they wanted all to go underground.
Right.
Well, the only person in the country who knew how to build underground was me.
Okay.
Because Manhattan, there were no telephone poles. So it was a Canadian company won the franchise for Los Angeles, and they actually a friend who was a recruiter out here, actually the son of Shigori Robinson, the boxer. He was executive recruiter. He called me up and said, come out here and interview for this job. And I was like, no, I'm a New York kid. I don't go to La La Land. That's not for me. And finally, like the chairman of this company called me and said, listen, do you got a girlfriend? I went, yeah. He goes, first class airfare, Beverly Hills Hotel, weekend, I need an hour. And I'm like, as long as you understand, there's no way I'm taking that job. And he said, yeah, okay. So I came out here and, I was like a total idiot and, going through the thing, going, okay, you got an hour, 59 minutes. And, after the hour, I said, okay, we're done, did my hour and, And so they said, well, what would it take for you to move? And I just said, I named like 4 times what I was making in New York. And I said, and I want a car, and I want to live in Liberace's house that I see on Entertainment Tonight, figuring that should get rid of them and they'll never talk to me again. So I went back to New York, and I go, yeah, California wasn't as bad as I thought. Weather was nice. It was like February, and but then I was walking to work one day, and New York is the first day it snows, it's pretty. The second day it's like black gush. And I got my suit on and I think I'm cool, and a taxi comes by and splashes me with all this stuff, and I'm like, oh damn, maybe I shouldn't have been so quick to get rid of that guy. And I get to the office, and my assistant says, hey, that guy from Canada is calling you again. So I call him back, and he goes, look, what you asked for is ridiculous, but yeah, all right, we'll do it.
Okay, so now you're in California. What next?
So I built this cable system called Valley Cable, which was the first two-way interactive 61-channel cable system ever built. It was like super advanced for that time. So, being a New York kid out here, everybody's in the entertainment business. They're going to parties and premieres and all this stuff. So, I asked the studios, I said, hey, put me on those lists. And they went, no. I said, why not? They go, you're like a utility, you're not in the entertainment business. So, I was kind of disappointed, but then I said, hey, you know what, I got empty channels. The only time I ever see a movie trailer is when I'm in the movies.
Right.
So I called them up, I said, look, why aren't you advertising and putting those things on when I'm at home and make me want to go to the movies? They said, too expensive. I went, tell you what. I said, send me the trailers, I'll put them on TV for free, but you got to put me on those lists.
Okay.
So they said, yeah, sure, if you do that. But then we started doing market research. What's your favorite channel? I love CNN, I love MTV, I love ESPN, I love that trailer channel. I'm going, wait a second, I get in the best 2 minutes of a $50 million movie, then movies are only 50. And I get those for free, and people love them. A friend of mine, Alan, from New Jersey, we were just kicking around ideas and saying, I want to stay in LA, let's think of ideas. And then we just said, you know what, MTV are the movies. I said, at that time, MTV was fresh and new, and you had video jockeys, and all they did was they stood some up in front of a green screen and went, and Madonna has a new video. I said, we could do when Schwarzenegger has a new movie. And, that's how we started formulating the idea. And then, we just said that, right now people fight for 10 seconds on Entertainment Tonight. I said, why not we create Entertainment Tonight 24 hours a day? So what CNN does for news, or the Weather Channel does for weather, or ESPN does for sports, we could be that of Hollywood. And so we wrote a plan, thought we were brilliant, and then someone introduced us to a banker on Wall Street, a young guy who just got the job, the head of investment banking for this little Wall Street firm. And he goes, I used to be the entertainment reporter for my college newspaper, and I like the idea, and I want in. We said, great, could you make it more like the 100 million in the 60s so we could do all the things we want? He goes, oh, no, I'm only allowed to sign for 2.5.
That's the difference.
And we go like, what are we going to do with 2.5? It's like minimum 60, more likely 100. He goes, that's all I'm allowed to sign for. So Alan and I just looked at each other and said, you know what, we're smart, we'll figure this out. So give us a 2.5 million. So we literally took $2.5 million, and I had a friend who was teaching radio, television, film in Texas, in Austin.
Okay.
And I called him up and I said, you know, do you have a bunch of kids who need intern jobs? And he said, yeah, we actually had trouble placing a lot of kids. So he sent me 31 kids from University of Texas in Austin. And he started with 11 employees and 31 interns.
Isn't that interesting? I think that's, I mean, I don't know if it's how common it is, but you were definitely a trailblazer. You know what I mean? And you said you were stupid enough to not know. And so just look what came out of that. So definitely you were a trailblazer.
Yeah, you know, and now, you know, it's interesting. I mean, it's funny to me because everybody talks about influencers and stuff. The biggest influencer of pop culture in the world is E. You know, Kardashians have done pretty well with it, and you know, told a lot. Howard Stern, the Kardashians, and yeah, and it really is a great example how, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. That saying, because we didn't have money, so we had to think of like really different stuff. And you know, you go back to the early shows like Talk Soup. You know, when I came up with that, people going, Larry, you want to do a TV show that makes fun of TV shows? And I'm going, exactly. You know, and we got Greg Kinnear, who was one of our, you know, first hosts, and you know, Greg would stand there and, you know, make fun of Springer Show and things like that. And Talk Soup ran 26 years.
Yeah. That was a good choice. He's a good-looking guy too.
Greg has done amazing, and he's still a sweetheart, and he's still, you know, I got to say that out of all the hosts we had. And everybody says, oh, you were so lucky you had all those great hosts. They don't realize that in order to get the first 5 hosts, we interviewed almost 11,000 people, and we put 7,000 people on tape. So
it's interesting. You actually made me feel better saying that you hired interns, and that's how you got going. That's how I started.
I'm still a huge believer in interns.
Yeah.
Everything I do. Because they make me smarter.
Exactly.
You know, if I'm going to program to younger folks, I got to be around them and I got to understand what triggers them.
Exactly.
And which has kind of helped me in, not just in E, but in other countries. Because I do the same kind of things.
Okay, so who doesn't know the success of E? We know that the E Entertainment Network is huge. So that was a success, and like you said, it's in other countries, but I know you also started companies in other countries. You were in Russia and you're in China. So can you tell a little about Russia and China?
You know, E grew so big that you know, it kind of became boring for me because I was spending all my time in the boardroom and budgets, and you know, now it was like, you know, multi-$100 million thing, and so I wasn't creating anymore. I was being like the boss. And so a lawyer who that I knew had some clients that were doing business and was still the Soviet Union, and said, Larry, somebody proposed an entertainment deal to my client. I don't know if it's good, but you want to go there and tell me what you think? And I went, yeah, sure, I'll go there. I met the mayor of St. Petersburg, and he said, you know, would you help me start a music festival and raise money for the Children's Hospital and the orphanage? And I went, I don't know music. And he goes, well, you got to know more than I do. And I went, okay, yeah, I probably do. And so we started this festival called the White Nights Festival, and we raised money. So we ended up starting a media company there, and we were doing TV and film. I brought the soap opera Santa Barbara there, and we redid it in Russian, and it was actually the #1 TV show in Russia for 10 years.
So you're very good at finding where there's a need, and also the fact that they wanted something uplifting, that's what I'm trying to say. And you were feeling that void, and I think that's pretty cool. And I feel like that's, I mean, this is just my 2 cents, but it seems like that's where the popularity came in, because you were like feeling in that you were bringing joy, taking them away from their issues.
It's really a matter of paying attention to the audience. Go, what does the audience want? What does the audience see? It doesn't make a difference what I feel like programming. It's what do they want.
Right.
So why I've been able to do that successfully in other countries where, you know, most Americans fail is, I mean, very simple. I liken it to going to my mother's house. When my mother lived in Florida, you know, I would go down there, you know, after my dad passed, and I would, you know, say, hey, tonight, 8 o'clock, we're going for Italian food. She goes, no, we're going to the deli at 5 o'clock. I go, Mom, I don't eat at 5 o'clock. And her answer was always, if you don't like the rules in the house, go somewhere else. And that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because when I go into them, I'm not there to change their governments or anything like that. I'm there to entertain them and to pay attention to like how they live. And so for me, it's more about learning about them than me saying here's the kind of stuff I
that makes
offer
sense.
you.
So let's jump over to China.
Sure. So it's kind of a funny story. So I was doing this festival there, and the festival up until the Ukraine war ran 31 years. But in order to get people to play, I would promise them anything.
Okay.
So, it'd be like I think the most famous story, David Bowie. David, could you play at the festival? No. David, it's a charity for children. They're going to die if we, of hunger or, no medical thing. He goes, I don't like Russian people. I don't like Russian food. I'm trying to stop drinking. And for me to travel 11 hours to go play another concert hall, just not interesting.
Yeah.
I said, tell you what, there's a fort in St. Petersburg where all the czars are buried. I said, I'll build a stage over their graves and you could dance on the graves of the czars. And David went, yeah, right, if you could do that, then I'll play. So I go back and I tell the mayor, and the mayor says, yeah, whatever you need is fine. Just go tell the vice mayor, Vladimir, that, give you generator trucks, whatever you need. Well, Vladimir was a guy named Putin. So I worked with him and we did this. And he came from St. Petersburg.
Okay.
So I became very trusted because, here I was helping the kids from the city that he was born and raised, and I wasn't just an American carpetbagger looking to make a few bucks real quick and run away and stuff. So when he ended up rising and going into the Kremlin, he had this minister of communications who I had known from work, and they asked me to kind of help them rewrite regulatory policy. Then about, it's 12 years now. 12 years ago, the Chinese kind of came to that realization that if they're going to create a consumer economy, they have to have media that at least looks a little familiar to Western marketers.
Sure.
Because people were really, now that they have money, and there's a rising middle class in China, they typically want Western luxury goods. And Western marketers are going to come in, and you can't just have random rules. So like advertising is 30 seconds, 60 seconds and things like that. So the Chinese went to the Russians said, no, this guy in LA did it for us. And so I got invited in. Now we're totally involved in immersive entertainment. I don't know if you've seen Immersive Van Gogh and Klimt and these things where you kind of feel like you're living inside the painting or the painter's world.
I'm not familiar, but wow,
it's huge here in the U.S. now. There's a whole bunch. The brand new one is just launching in L.A. now. It's called Immersive 100 Years of Disney Animation.
I need to find out about
it's
that.
Really amazing.
Get into that. That's cool. I need to write about it, actually.
Yeah. So it's in here in Hollywood. They have the old Amoeba record store. Building has been converted.
Thank you for informing me of that. So in China, don't you have a company there? It's the Metan?
Yeah, Metan is in China, and we do everything is done as a Chinese company. And the one thing we did that kind of made us successful is we produce this stuff there only in native language. Okay. So it's not like here's what we do in the U.S. and we'll dub it for you. And the Chinese are proud. The Russians. It was a different market. The Russians, you found women wanted to marry Americans, get out of there, to be American. Chinese are really happy to be Chinese. They want to learn about Western culture and Western history, but they don't want to be us.
Okay.
So the smartest thing we ever did, just said we're going to be in Mandarin, and we're going to produce specifically for this market and their taste, which is different. Chinese culture is very different, family life, very different than U.S.
So you have a show there. Don't you have a comedy show, or is it still?
So I decided at my old age, I'm going to start writing comedy.
Okay.
And of course, everybody says comedy is like you can't do. do it, and comedy from one culture doesn't translate and
Yeah.
stuff. I just wrote a comedy story, and I gave it to my partner in China, this woman Jean, and she said, "I love this. Could I take it to the TV station?" I went, "Yeah, if you want to, it's fine." It was all about the contradictions of modern Chinese life, where if you're observant, you could realize that, when people get enormous wealth in a very short period of time, their social skills don't grow as quick as the bank account.
Right.
We're on Gucci this and Prada that and pink Porsches and stuff. So I wrote this comedy about the contradictions of modern Chinese life. She went to the TV station and she came. She said they liked the story and they want to meet the writer. We're setting a dinner for next week. So, I go to the dinner and I'm sitting there and she comes in with the guy. And in Mandarin, she introduces me, and I know enough Mandarin to understand that he's saying, no, I want to meet the writer. This is a white guy. I think so. Or the guy was educated in the West. He spoke English. He goes, no. He goes, no offense. He goes, but I never thought this was written by anybody other than a Chinese person.
Right, okay.
So he goes, but you're an American and we're Communist Party TV. We can't put you on television. I went, okay, whatever. 2 weeks later, he called back and said, I went to the propaganda department, because they do have a propaganda department. And they know who you are, of course, but they love the story, because it was really about balance.
Okay.
It was not rich is good or poor is good or city is good or rural is good. It was about finding that balance in life and finding happy,
Right.
not finding riches.
I'm going to come back to the U.S.
When the show goes into France, Las Vegas, which is the most advanced studio I've ever seen, by using artificial intelligence,
Let's talk about
but making the lips move exactly the way they're supposed to move.
Wow.
The NFTYs.
Thank you for having us. And I'm so excited to have you in the Contour of Luxury and for being my cover story.